Welcome to Freaked Out with your psychic medium host, Liz. Today, we are going to be covering the murder of Lindsay Buziak. Now, this case has haunted Canada for nearly 15 years. And honestly, the deeper you go, the more crazy it gets. It looks less like a random murder and more like somebody put all the steps to get here. Let's get into the details and then ask the questions, and then I will give my visions. Lindsay was a 24-year-old real estate agent, and she was significantly in her prime. She was doing what she needed to do, hardworking individual to the highest degree. She ended up walking into an empty $1 million estate with a couple she had never met before. Minutes later, she was stabbed to death. The couple disappeared. There was no robbery, there was no sexual assault, and unfortunately, no arrests. How are we supposed to just believe that they went into this house and just murdered her for the thrill of it, quite literally done in a few minutes, and believe that this was not something personal? I'll tell you, nothing in this case feels random. It feels incredibly calculated. Let's talk a little bit about Lindsay. Now, Lindsay was, like I said earlier, a real estate agent in BC, Canada. She was young and ambitious, and she was really trying to get her career going. She, from what I can see and from what she shows me, she was a hardworking individual, and she has obviously never run into any crazies before and didn't anticipate this to happen. And friends also describe her as hardworking, but that was the feel that I got when I channeled her. She very much so, even now, putting all the pieces together, it's like a job for her. She is incredibly smart. And another thing, too, is Lindsay was not reckless. It was not uncommon for her to meet somebody that she had been texting at a home, but this was very common and nobody thought this would happen. And an interesting detail about this case is that she told some people some very chilling details before she went in to meet these people. She said that she had a bad feeling about the clients that she was about to meet. And I mean, there's a reason she said that. I believe that there were some phone calls between the two of them where these people weren't necessarily interested in the house. They were more or less interested in her. And of course, her instincts were screaming because these people were acting incredibly unusual. A week before the murder actually took place, Lindsay received a call from this alleged woman. And this woman had said, hey, my husband is moving to Victoria, BC, and wanted to buy a house that's around $1 million. Clearly, as a real estate agent, you're going to jump on that. That is one hell of a commission. That kind of sale could make your entire month, honestly. Now, the woman did have a very strong accent. Some people suggest that it was something Latino. Others suggest that it sounded more European. And my vibe is screaming European. Now, this particular person called Lindsay directly on her cell phone. And it was not her office number at all. Like, this was directly her phone number, which means, usually people forward their numbers, right? It's unusual. I know for me, I have a work phone and I also have a personal phone. And if my clients contacted me on my personal phone, I'd be like, how did you get this number? You know what I'm saying? Now, there were some suspicious requests that we know of. They had extremely specific requests for this, but being a hoity-toity millionaire, I guess people don't think anything of it. I know for me, watching Below Deck and watching all of these rich people and their expectations, it's not uncommon. She wanted a house that was expensive, brand spanking new, and completely empty. Empty house, no witnesses, got it. No residents to interrupt, just a large space that could basically have anything happen. Now, Lindsay was concerned. As she should have, those alarm bells seemed to be going off in her head. but she also didn't want to be paranoid and lose this sale option. Now, Lindsay did tell her boyfriend, Jason Zalo, and she did inform him, hey, like, this situation is getting weirder and weirder as time progresses. They made a plan. Jason would drive her to the showing and wait outside in the car. And he said he would stay there while he waited for her to show the house. He wasn't going to go inside, just nearby in case something felt off. It's weird because even with this happening, they were able to still kill her inside. And although I do not believe that the boyfriend had a connection to this, it's really hard to believe that there were no noises coming from somewhere. It just feels odd. Maybe he was completely immersed in his, technology or a phone or something, but for me, I'm just like, how did that part happen? That is the only piece that I'm still like, about when it comes to the boyfriend. Other than that, I don't feel like he's done anything. They also didn't know that he was there, apparently, or they were just so confident in their plan that they just simply didn't care. Let's go over the timeline here. The showing was scheduled for 5:30 p.m. in the evening, and that was on February 2nd, 2008. It was February, so it was already dark at that point, and the house was near Victoria. Again, brand new build, completely empty as they had requested. And neighbors had actually reported seeing Lindsay arriving later on. Shortly after that, they saw a couple, male and female, walking up to the house. Now, witnesses did describe them as incredibly well dressed. The woman was tall and confident. People actually believed that she might have been wearing a wig. The man was tall and quiet. The vibe I picked up from him was that he just didn't look at anyone in their eyes. Now, I obviously do not believe that these two individuals were rich by any means, but they had to look the part. If you can tell that somebody's wearing a wig from very far away, it's very cheap. Congratulations to these two idiots, though. They managed to look normal for about 10 minutes before committing the most cowardice crime possible. Now let's get into the attack. Lindsay greeted the couple and brought them inside of her house. Jason stayed outside in the car, as we are aware of, and at first everything seemed normal. Now, he did try calling Lindsay because it was taking forever. No answer. So he ended up going inside of the house. The house was quiet, too quiet. He walked upstairs, and then in one of the bedrooms is where he found her. The attack was brutal. Police confirmed several important details much later. Now, nothing had been stolen. There was no sexual assault of any kind. There were a few signs of a struggle, but the attack was fast, like very fast. Almost like the killers had already planned this out previously of exactly what they had planned to do. Real brave of them, though, attacking an unarmed woman. Good job. That's real impressive. Then the killers vanished, as if out of nowhere, which is very odd because they were able to leave the neighborhood without anyone noticing or identifying them or anything. No confirmed vehicle, no clear surveillance, no suspects. This is what I feel. I believe that they had a vehicle down the road somewhere else, because their vehicle did not sit to the standards of what like a millionaire or billionaire might have been driving around. So I believe that they had their car quite a distance. I also believe that they timed it, like they went to this location probably a few days before the attack took place to calculate the best logical possible way to get out of this situation. And I'm also being shown that they were able to maneuver out of the neighborhood basically on their hands and knees and creeping away without anyone noticing anything. which is so bizarre, but also extremely calculated. Now, let's get into the investigation side of this. Let's talk about the phone calls. The woman who arranged this meeting called Lindsay more than once, and some of those calls were made with using prepaid phones, which makes sense. Obviously, it makes it more difficult to track because we don't know who has that phone. And the caller knew exactly when Lindsay would be available. Somebody knew Lindsay's schedule ahead of time. And then the witnesses suggested that this couple looked perfect, almost too perfect, well dressed and confident, like they were playing a role. And some people believe that this was a staged thing and that the accent may have been fake. That I also agree with. I heavily believe that the accent was faked, which is another reason why people couldn't distinguish between a Latin and a European accent because it probably changed back and forth. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this was definitely planned. Now, let's get into my visions. Well, what I can tell you is this: the two people that went in to kill her, I feel like they were hired hitmen, like hit woman, hit man. They've done it before, but I do believe that this was a hired hit and they specifically targeted her. I believe that these particular hired individuals were related to whoever hired them. I am seeing that this is connected to a woman. I feel like there was a woman that was very, very jealous of Lindsay. Lindsay was one of those people that not a lot of people hated. She got along with everyone. She didn't have any enemies. She genuinely tried to be very professional and be the best version she could. She was very much about her image. But there was one or two women in her workplace that she did not get along with. She also was flirted with by certain people that worked at this place. Now, I don't feel like this woman acted alone. I see that she went to her own people and just referenced on how much this girl pissed her off. I feel like she tried to get her in trouble. I feel like she did everything in her power to make damn sure that Lindsay was no longer a problem. I keep feeling the name connected to like a Pamela. Now, here's the other piece of it. This Pamela character comes from the wrong side of the tracks, if you will. This woman grew up in a lot of poverty, a very heavily abused, a very abusive boyfriend. She knew a lot of shady people. She herself has gotten into some legal trouble, although not charged for those things. But I do feel like she did and got into some trouble in the past. And these two people that I believe were her cousins have gotten into significant trouble in the past and also in the future since this situation happened. Now, I see that she called these people in a panic and they were like, well, why don't we just take her out? And then they started to genuinely plot this murder. I believe that they knew her schedule because it was all work based. These people wanted to play a big game with her. They wanted to do this in such a manner that A, they would not get caught, but B, they would also be playing this role. They were going to get dressed up fancy, go to fancy dinner. Like they had this whole thing planned out. And even the price point, like I believe they only got paid like $2,000. And because they didn't have a lot of money, they were like, hell yeah, this is going to take us the rest of our life. Like, we're going to make this money, no problem. I believe that the coworker, this Pamela person, and again, this is the name I'm picking up on. It doesn't necessarily mean her name is Pamela. It could be, though, or a variant or something. Was the one who purchased all of the items, like the clothes they needed, the phones that they needed, everything. And she also was communicating with Lindsay as well because of like just making sure she's going to go to this. Maybe she even talked to her directly and was like, oh my God, these people are like being a little bit pushy and weird. But then I think that this girl was like, girl, you don't want to drop a client like this. And I also believe that Lindsay kind of thought that was weird because this girl was never somebody who was like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm your support system. Don't worry, you're going to get this. This woman was constantly competing against her. And the other really creepy, eerie feeling that I have is when they went into this house, they were aware that the boyfriend was outside. And this almost got shut down. I believe she, the coworker, was also in and around the area in her vehicle, spotting these details and sharing the details with her cousins, whom, by the way, were not at all a couple and were related to each other like brother and sister. I am also sensing that they had planned to do this murder in a more, how do I say this, a lengthy time, but because the boyfriend was outside and because they got the up and up about that, which is why they were able to slip out very easily, I keep feeling as though they made this a lot quicker because of it. If he was not there, they would have sexually assaulted her. They would have robbed her. They would have done much more than what they had already done. So they wanted to be brutal but quick. I do believe that before she died, they did whisper in her ear that this was from Pamela and that Pamela says hi. And I even feel like she might have been on the phone, not a video call, but the phone call on a cell phone, listening to all of this as it was going on. And then she drove away. There's also a piece of this story that could possibly be as well, where I am sensing that they did have their own vehicle somewhere else in the neighborhood, but I feel like it was a hell of a lot farther than somebody being able to quickly run to it. So it's very possible that this Pamela chick met them around the corner and then drove them to their vehicle as well. I also feel like Pamela's boyfriend was also there too. I feel like they all had disguises on, like sunglasses, wigs, hats, you name it. They were all disguised. And then I see that after the murder was committed, they all went out to dinner and celebrated this disgusting, despicable thing that happened. And then I even feel like it went a step further where they were all sitting in a hotel room because I think that these cousins of hers are not from this area. I believe that they're in another part of BC. Were hanging out and sitting in a hotel watching the news as things come out and happy that they basically got away with murder. Now, when it comes to the boyfriend connection, a lot of people think that he had some sort of connection. And although I am suspicious of every cisgender man possible on the planet at this point, I genuinely don't feel like he did. If he was involved, although maybe there could be a potential piece where he was sitting outside to make sure that nobody saw what was happening, that is very possible. But she is showing me that he was, yeah, they had their problems at times, but he was genuinely worried and concerned and supportive and just wanted to be there. And like I said earlier, if he wasn't, I believe that that would have been more significant. And when it comes to him not paying attention, he really wasn't. He was paying attention to the time, but he wasn't paying attention to more than that at that point. I think that he was kind of just checked out doing his own thing, waiting, and he didn't even really watch the house. He was just kind of hanging out. I'm even thinking that he might have even been on a phone call or something. Either way, he was distracted by something which prevented him from seeing or hearing anything. Because she was screaming. She was losing her shit. She shows me that too. Oh my God, guys. I think I figured out the pieces that were missing. While I have been editing this video, more and more visions of this case keep popping up. And that's why I had to quite literally just come on here and share my feels. So, first things first, I just looked up a detail connected to her boyfriend. So, apparently, she worked for a company connected to her boyfriend's family. And now I'm thinking that this is even bigger. I'm going to say that, yes, I feel like this woman was jealous, angry. There's also a connection to the boyfriend. We were thinking about that. I was thinking there was a connection to the boyfriend somehow, but I didn't feel like he was guilty. So I believe that it's like two families, like this family and then this other family. And this family is jealous of that company as a whole. There is some sort of crazy like family dynamics. And this woman and the boyfriend, there's also something there too. I don't know, they could have been exes, they could have had some past in the past, but it feels very expensive. I still believe a woman is connected. I feel like the name Pamela isn't her real name. I think it's like a stage name she goes by. And I'm also thinking these cousins are connected to the family, but they could even be like in a gang or a mob or something crazy. Like it's wild actually. And then on top of that, I keep seeing the jealousy against her. So it wasn't necessarily about the career, but it was definitely about the money. The money is hella like important here. There's a money dynamic involved, obviously on a bigger scale. And I feel like there was a ransom. I feel like there was this whole thing behind the scenes that we have no idea about, because I believe that they were like, not that they were going to kidnap her or anything, but I am sensing like leading up to this, they were like, if you don't do this, this, and this, I don't know exactly what they were doing, and maybe one day I'll figure it out. But if you don't do this, this, and this, then we're going to hurt somebody in your family. And I think that she was the target in this situation because of that. It's so freaking wild, but that's what I'm feeling on that end of things. So I do believe the family knows a hell of a lot more than what is being told. I even believe the police know a hell of a lot more than what's being told, maybe to protect the family or whatever the case may be. But it seems pretty significant. I do believe that they know who did it. I also believe that, again, the partial print thing, that will come out a lot later. And this woman is a significant player in all of this. And she got what she wanted. The name Christy keeps also popping in my head. So I'm going to say Christy, Krista, Kristen, in and around that type of name. And I feel like that might be the real name and Pamela's the stage name, maybe to write up the checks. We'll find out about all this later on, but it seems wow and way big. But they gave in to their demands and more of that family might have died off. So anyways, I just wanted to give you that update. Will this case ever get solved? I mean, there is a thumbprint or a partial print somewhere that they have in the system, but I also feel like it's not enough to convict or even figure out whose thumbprint it is, at least not right now. When our technology gets to a better point, maybe in a few years, they'll be able to figure it out a hell of a lot easier. But I think it's going to be a while before this case actually does get solved. The other piece of it is I don't feel like the police did their due diligence when it came to communicating with people she worked with. I feel like people that work directly to her were not questioned enough, were not pushed enough. I don't even feel like Pam was even questioned at any point. Like she basically got off scot free completely. She did her role like, oh my God, it's so sad what happened, but nothing more than that. Was she part of any other killings? I don't feel like she was. This is something that plays on her. Like as she's become older, there is some remorse that I feel, not completely, but yeah, there's definitely an itch. When it comes to the people that actually did the killings, they're really shady energies. In fact, I don't even feel like this Pamela character communicates with them at all anymore. But, anyways, that is what I feel when it comes to Lindsay. Now, if you guys have any more questions connected to this case, please drop them in the comment section and we'll talk about it. But until next time, stay freaked out.